Is Cuba now closed to Americans? No, it's not. And here's how to go. Hey, How To Crew, it's me, Andrea. So back in August, I went to Havana for the first time and I absolutely loved it. And I was so surprised at how easy it was to go as an American. So I was telling everyone, you gotta go, you gotta go. And then November 9th happened, and everyone's like, wait, can I still go? Which was a very good question that I did not have the answer to, and it seemed no one had the answer to. So I've gotten those answers. So this is how to go to Cuba post November 9th. It's as simple as book a flight, and all travel services, fees, insurance, all that stuff is included in the airfare. And if there's a pop-up that says, do you understand the travel restrictions? Click yes. Well, if you've watched this video, yes. You book your hotel or Airbnb. Again, if there's a pop-up, you said yes, you understand. Then you go to the airport and you buy your visa at the Cuba Travel Services kiosk for $100. And you also get a white sheet of paper. So behind me is the visa desk. I just did that and it took a whopping 4 minutes. So they're kind of telling you that you need to get in super early, which you can because there's no online check-in for Havana. But as you can see, there's no one there. Then you go to the bar, if you're like me, you fill out the pink visa. It has to be pink if you're flying through the US, regardless of what citizenship you have. Then you fill out the white sheet of paper asking you, why are you going there? Then you go to board the flight and the ticketing agent will take your white sheet of paper, look at it. In my case, didn't say anything, board the flight, bada bing, bada boom, you're in Cuba. It was really, really, really that easy. Now, where all the confusion and all the stress happens is that white sheet of paper. What box do you check? What box do you check? There are 18 boxes to check, but none of them say tourist. One of the main misconceptions is that President Obama allowed for Americans to travel to Cuba as tourists under a tourist visa. That has never been true. You've never been allowed to travel to Cuba as a tourist. Well, since the early 60s. It's all about this one box, educational exchanges, people to people. And to explain it, I spoke to John Caulfield, who couldn't be more of an expert. He served in the State Department for 30 years and was the chief of the U.S. interest section in Cuba, our quote-unquote embassy, from 2011 to 2014, and actually worked with the Obama administration on these rules.
One of the categories, people to people, to interact with the Cuban people, to learn more about Cuba, that category used to be restricted to organized travel groups. And at the very end of the Obama administration, they said, well, people can just make up their own trips. They don't have to go with a travel agent or on an arranged tour. And that's the regulation that Trump changed by reverting to what it was before the end of the Obama administration.
So what exactly happened November 9th?
New regulations were published for Americans traveling to Cuba, and they said two things that were important. One of the categories you could travel to Cuba on was people to people. The rule is now that you must go on an organized trip. There must be a travel organizer that puts together your tour. And then the second thing is that if you go to Cuba, you're not allowed to patronize establishments owned by the Cuban military. The Cuban military owns a lot of hotels and some restaurants.
But there is good news. If you booked your trip, including a blacklisted hotel before November 9th, you are allowed to complete that trip, including checking the people-to-people box. But if you don't want to trust me, trust John's word.
If you had made your plan, booked your flight, made hotel reservations before November 9th, then you're not subject to the new regulations. You're allowed to complete your trip under the rules that existed before.
Now, it's only if you haven't booked the trip yet that you have to fall under one of these categories. And it's really up to you and why you're going to visit Cuba. So I'm going to explain a few of the popular choices. So let's start with the category I checked, journalism, which I could still go on if I booked today. But I was told by John was the worst thing that I could have possibly filled out.
The Cubans are very sensitive about journalists reporting on their country. And they normally require journalists to go with a journalism visa that's issued by the Cuban embassy in Washington, D.C., which is difficult to get. However, in your case, it looks like you got through without too many troubles.
Probably because this licensing form is only for the US. It never makes its way to Cuba. It's given to the gate agent and they may, or in my case, did not question me, and then you board the flight. When I went, there was no Cuban equivalent of this form. You just needed your visa and passport. The person that I traveled with checked support of the Cuban people, and they've done that in conjunction with giving toiletries, water. It's an option. But here's John's rules for clicking that box.
Assistance of the Cuban people is going to require on the U.S. website that you have a pretty detailed explanation of where you're going, who you're going to be helping, and you can't be helping people on the beach in that category.
But let's say you're not as adventurous of a traveler as I am and maybe don't feel like you could check one of those boxes. These are ways that John suggests you can go to Cuba.
The easiest way is to sign up for one of the people-to-people tours. There's plenty that are advertised on the internet. The travel provider, they will assure that you stick by the rules. In other words, you only stay in hotels that are approved and you only eat in restaurants that are not owned by the Cuban Armed Forces. But I think the next way is, if you're a member of any religion, look into trips that churches might sponsor to Cuba. You don't have to be a church official or anything like that. You can simply go with one of these groups. And then for students, there are academic programs or exchange programs that you can go to Cuba on as a student.
If you're still like, I don't know if I want to go, here's a different perspective from someone who's been there post-November 9th.
It's an American regulation that they seek to enforce on the ground in Cuba. I don't think there's anybody from the Department of Treasury sitting in the lobby of the Kempinski figuring out if that's an American at the bar buying a beer.
Oh, and if you want to contact John and Miles and maybe even go to Cuba with their humanitarian group Innovadores, you can.
I think that there's a great other audience of millennials that want to discover what's going on down there, and that's why I wanted to take the interview.
Cuba is still open. Only a few things have changed, and the hotels I'm going to be getting to in another video. But I really want to encourage everyone to go right now because it will be a little bit more difficult to go as an American. Alaska Airlines, who I went through LAX, said that they're going to be suspending service in January 2018 because they anticipate demand is going to go down. And listen, where there's a will, there's a way, and you guys absolutely should go. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and if I can't answer it, I will try to get to someone who can. Enjoy. Please go to Havana. It's absolutely amazing. I'll be posting more videos about what to do there, tips, everything. So subscribe if you want to see those videos, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.